Welcome to the Monday stream. I hope everyone's having an awesome Monday. Welcome, everybody. Dario Bennett, Q Bennett, Heat, how's it going? Welcome. Alio, how's it going? Welcome, everybody. It is the beginning of another week. Hope everyone had a nice weekend. Folks, just a couple of things. Yellow King, okay, we'll do a mandolin riff at some point. Just a couple of things before we get started. If you guys want to support the channel, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTubes, like the stream, and head on over to the Discord. If you want to keep up with the channel, this is how you do it. Also, at the end of the month, quite literally at the end of the month, the last Saturday of this month, there will be a holiday-themed movie session. Michael Hasser, thank you. That's right. Okay, I think I got everything going. There we go. Folks, it's a little cold today. Whew. All right, folks, we have quite a few things to go through, so let's get the show started. I guess we should start with some semi funny stuff.
And everywhere else.
Her phone open in the bathroom.
Yeah, that's Vivek. Vivek, that's your phone, Vivek. I'm not able to mute you.
He took a piss. That's right. Vivek Ramaswamy took a piss. This is the story today. I got some actual news coming up, just to let you know, because I could not justify doing a whole video on someone taking a piss. But Vivek Ramaswamy, during a meeting of the dipshits, which included Elon Musk, Alex Jones, and some other clowns, was on Twitter during this meeting and left his mic on during a important moment in the meeting, which included Vivek having to pee. So here is the clip, and then I'll do whatever commentary I can, and then we'll get to some real news.
Ah,
Elon Musk is promoting an optimistic pro-human future that the science and evidence shows.
CNN will cover that. True. Yep. The real news, okay? We're doing peak journalism, okay? This is the kind of riveting stories that everybody wants to hear. The Naked Gun reboot.
Is real and that we need.
Gentlemen, I have to go.
Yeah, I just want to be sort of yeah, exactly. I want to be clear about my position. I'm super pro-human, and I mean all humans. Humans in America, humans in
Somebody's
Africa,
got their thing
Asia.
open.
Oh my god.
And everywhere else.
Got her phone open in the bathroom.
Yeah, that's Vivek. Vivek, that's your phone, Vivek. I'm not able to mute you. Vivek. Perfect. Go ahead, Elon.
Vivek, please, sir, please. Presidential candidate, Vivek, please.
Sorry about that.
So, well, I hope you feel better.
I feel great. Thank you. Sorry about that, guys.
So, did he actually take a piss? This is what's being reported. Is that he
David is no slouch. Okay.
did. I'm actually not so convinced. It could
Oh!
just be him washing his hands. It sounds like a very weak stream. So let that tell you whatever it does. But this is, everyone's reporting. Like Newsweek has a story on this. Who else? New York Post has a story on this. Mediaite. They're all claiming that he peed, but they're really just basing that off of what Alex Jones said, and his track record isn't too good. So it may not be a pee. Regardless, let's get to some real news, because goddamn, I can't.
All right, so now that we've covered, the important stuff, now that we've done our due diligence,
I can't do more on P-Gate. This is real news right here. So over the weekend, the U.S. vetoed a resolution on Gaza, which called for an immediate humanitarian.
yeah, nice, phenomenal stuff, right? Yeah, the important news. Yeah, the important news is it's been covered. Okay, that's it. That's the end of the the end of the segment. But yeah, this is important. Like, I mean, there's really no words for this, right?
Ceasefire. This headline right here from the UN. The vote, as a UN news right here, U.S. vetoed Security Council draft resolution that would have demanded an immediate humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza and immediate and unconditional release of all hostages. 13 voted in favor.
Like, isn't that supposedly what the Israeli government's one of their like main goals was to get all the hostages, and then like the U.S. is like, nah. You mean in exchange for hostages, like we actually have to have like some type of humanitarian ceasefire? Nah.
One against, and the UK abstained. Now, a quick breakdown here of who is in the Security Council. So there are 5 permanent members: China, France, Russia, UK, and the US. And then you have rotating non-permanent members that right now includes Albania, Brazil, Ecuador, Gabon, Ghana, Japan, Malta, Mozambique, Switzerland, and the UAE. So this resolution was introduced by the UAE, and as you saw, they all agreed on it except for the US and the UK.
Which, of course, has veto power, which is absurd.
Abstaining. Now, quote here from Riyad Mansour, the Palestinian UN envoy, called the veto disastrous. Quote, the Security Council was again prevented from rising to this moment to uphold its clear responsibilities in the face of this grave crisis threatening human lives and
What's this weak sauce abstention? Yeah, like basically like the UK like has historically been like our geopolitical like ally, and like this is I guess this is their way of playing like the both sides like on the fence, which like when you have the numbers that are coming from Gaza, what is it now, like over 16,000? I mean,
threatening regional and international peace and security. Instead of allowing this council to uphold its mandate by finally making a clear call after 2 months of massacres that the atrocities must end, the war criminals are given more time to perpetuate them. How can this be justified? And Nicolas de Rivière, France's permanent representative to the Security Council, who voted in favor of the ceasefire, argued that there is no contradiction in the fight against terrorism and the protection of civilians in strict respect of international humanitarian law.
Yeah, exactly. We're like twinsies. Hey, whoa. How do you feel about the repetition of ads on YouTube? Very dissatisfied, but I'm not going to really... Should I even answer that? Who is a hypocrite like U.S.? Who is a hypocrite like U.S. or Russia? Gaza versus Ukraine? This has nothing to do with like Gaza versus... with Russia versus Ukraine. This is strictly on the resolution to... Or strictly on the... adoption of a ceasefire in Gaza and the unconditional release of hostages. I feel like that's very important to hammer down the point, right? Of just how bad the U.S. doesn't seem to want peace there. And of course, I'm sure that this has to do with like what the Israeli government wants, right?
This goes to why the UN is so ineffective. Even though they are incredibly important and the voices there are very important to understanding that there is consensus on a lot of these issues, in terms of the actual action they're able to put forward or any sort of resolution like this, you are never going to have anybody of power, be it, the US, be it China, be it Russia, be it the UK, nobody with any actual veto power is ever going to face any sort of resolution that limits their power in any way. So because the U.S. is so tied to the far right-wing Israeli government...
Exactly. That's exactly... You see, like, exactly what David's analysis is heading to is exactly what I said. So Ukraine wants to ceasefire the Russians out and their territory back. No, this has nothing to do with Ukraine. This has absolutely nothing to do with Ukraine. This is... this is with regards to calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. That's what this is about. An immediate ceasefire in Gaza and the unconditional release of the hostages. That's what that's being. That's what was shot down by the United States.
You have here once again, and this is one of, I forget the count now, but it's something like over 40 or 50 votes where the U.S. has been one of either the single or one of a couple, including the UK, of votes for Israel and the apartheid government against the wishes of everybody else on the Security Council or the greater UN. This has been an ongoing issue with how the UN is unable to function in the face of empires having veto power, which also, I mean, we're kind of caught in the middle here, because either the UN has power, which you would need to include massive empire.
No, the UN doesn't have power, unfortunately. Are you calling for an immediate ceasefire in Ukraine? I'm not talking about Ukraine.
Powers like the UN, if the US, like the US, if the UN's going to have any real power. But if the US did not have veto power, they would not be a part of the UN. So it's sort of this catch-22 where either the UN has teeth and you have everybody on board, or it has no teeth and it means nothing. And either way,
it's like the U.S. has implied immunity. Yeah, basically, like these big powers all have like veto power, which is kind of silly, right? So any one of these countries can be like, nah, and derail something so important. Like for example, if like the entire UN wanted to work on like a climate initiative, any one of these veto power countries can just be like, nah. So that's kind of the UN. Like the UN needs to exist, but the UN also needs to be able to function. And under its current iteration, it's hard to say that it does. The way the UN is set up right now, or the way the US set up is the way the UN is set up, doesn't really give much teeth to do what it need. What a UN, and ideally, what a UN institution or body could do.
You're sort of stuck with situations like this where you have these mass powers voting in favor of their mass atrocities. Now, human rights lawyer Craig McIver tweeted out on the eve of the 75th anniversary of the Genocide Convention, the U.S. has again vetoed a ceasefire in the UN Security Council, thereby demonstrating its further complicity in the genocide in Palestine. Thousands have died since its last veto, and more will die now. And Craig McIver was the guy, I did a video on this, he was the guy that left the UN after being there for, I believe it was 30 or 40 years. I think it was 30 years. If
they decide on ceasefire, they will not release the hostages and there will be no ceasefire. So then that's on them, right? So you're making it, yeah, so then it would be on them. Then it would be their fault, right? Because if you were really interested in getting these hostages back, and this is the pathway to do it, then it is incumbent on you to at least try. Evening, people. Thank you for the tier 1 sub, 22 months. On who? It would be then on Hamas, right? If there's a, for example, if this UN resolution would have actually gone through and Israel would have backed it up and said, hey, we will support this. We will support this if you release all the hostages. Then at that point, it would be on Hamas, wouldn't it? The ceasefire does not contain releasing the hostages, so no. This one would. In fact, he said it at the beginning. It said there should be an immediate ceasefire along with the unconditional release of hostages. That's what this resolution was about.
Just recently left because he stated the UN has no teeth. It has no power when you have countries like the US having veto power. And there is no accountability, essentially, is part of the reason he left. So you know, he is continuing this fight for human rights in Gaza, but it's an uphill battle, and he knows better than anybody, having been a part of the UN for as long as he was. And
what would the U.S. do if Mexico was shelling and rocketing the U.S. and took citizens hostage on some? Hopefully, not kill tens of thousands of civilians. I don't understand. Like, what is this? Some kind of gotcha? Hopefully, not kill tens of thousands of civilians. I don't understand. By Israel's own account, 61% of the casualties were civilian. Is that acceptable? Is that an acceptable response? Is that a responsible a responsible response? No, it's not. It's not okay.
By the way, I also want to give credit here, a lot of credit, before I go any further, to Common Dreams. So I'm referencing a lot of what they're reporting here. So both Julie Conley and I'll get to this in a second here, Jake Johnson and others as well. I've utilized in the past. I've donated to them.
The U.S. would do what the U.S. does, find a way to profit. True. I just finished my coffee. Yeah, so like, also like, if your goal is to like not have that happen again, why are you creating the conditions into like what? Why are you creating the conditions that would increase the odds of these attacks happening again and again and again? Which, by the way, only benefits Netanyahu. At this point in time, Netanyahu knows that as soon as the conflict is done, he's done. So it is in his best interest to try to keep this going.
In the past as well. If you have, you know, if you're looking for a media outlet,
it's complicated. I don't know. I don't think so. I think not killing civilians is pretty like not complicated. None of this is okay on either side, but there's nothing stopping anything like this. Okay? Nobody said that what happened on October 7th is okay. I don't understand what the point of you making that even analogy would be, right? Because like the response would be, hopefully the U.S., like in your analogy, the response would be, hopefully the U.S. doesn't decide to go and like erase entire like blocks. Like, do you understand the disproportionate response and like how many civilian deaths? Though most of the biggest human rights offenders have veto power, the ironic part is, yeah, if there will be no weapons in Gaza that limit the threat of happening again. I don't understand what that means on either side. It increases the hate. Well, right now, I think Israel is the one that's effectively like Israel's right now advertising for Hamas. Israel right now is Hamas's best advocate.
To support Common Dreams consistently does a great job at communicating various human rights issues. They're very up on the climate crisis and the various groups fighting there as well. And they're one of my main resources when it goes to looking at what's actually important right now and, you know, what's happening in the world that needs to be addressed. Common Dreams is a great resource for that sort of reporting and perspective as well. So definitely, if you have the ability to, I would suggest donating to Common Dreams, and I'll link to their page below this video. But just want to show, you know, AOC is one of a handful, unfortunately, of politicians in Washington that are in favor of a ceasefire. But she tweets out here, shameful. The Biden administration can no longer reconcile their professed...
And by the way, all this is just torpedoing Biden's chances of the election next year, which we will talk about. All of this is just just like from a political standpoint, it's just a disaster. And on top of that, like, you should just do the right thing, right? Doesn't matter.
Concern for Palestinians and human rights, while also single-handedly vetoing the UN's call for ceasefire and sidestepping the entire U.S. Congress to unconditionally back the indiscriminate bombing of Gaza. I've run out of things to say at this point when it comes to the real unwillingness.
Well, what the Israeli government prefers right now is for this to keep going, so Netanyahu doesn't take a political axe, a proverbial political axe to the head. That's what Netanyahu and the Israeli government are trying to do right now. Do the right thing is not always that simple. It kind of is. I don't know, man. It kind of is. Just voting in the favor of a humanitarian, voting in favor of a humanitarian ceasefire is pretty simple. Like, that's like the most basic thing that you could do probably in that situation. Maybe not veto a potential proposal for attempting to get a immediate ceasefire. I don't know. It seems pretty easy. If terrorists hide and populate, I don't care. So that means that you should bomb the civilians, right? So that means that it's okay to bomb. Like, this argument makes no sense. Oh, well, they use human shields. Yeah, I know that. So the answer is not we blast through the shields, right? Because those are humans, right? Like, that's not the answer, right? That's not the answer, correct? Well, are they actually defeating Hamas or not? Because it sounds like they're just creating free advertising for Hamas and creating radicalization, avenues for radicalization. But that means leaving the terrorists? Not necessarily. You don't need to flatten entire neighborhoods to deal with terrorism. You could also just focus on, like, protecting yourself instead of going and doing these campaigns. So, like, let me just clarify so that we can just move on from this, so that we can be on the same page. At no point is it excusable to target civilians, right? That's understood, right? At no point is it okay to target civilians. I don't give a shit if there's a terrorist in there. You cannot bomb hospitals. I don't give a shit if there are terrorists in the schools or whatever it is. I don't care. Human shields, whatever argument. It's not okay. It's not okay to target civilians, right? Yes or no? It's that simple. I think the start more innocent killed than now. What? As the info arcane from international may change from moment to moment. Yeah, this info is pretty accurate. Okay, so at no point is it okay to target civilians, right? It is all just an excuse. The excuse is that Netanyahu is desperate, and this conflict going on only benefits Netanyahu. So he needs that. So he needs that to continue, right? That has happened on both sides and hostages taken. What hostages? Have you seen what Gaza looks like? There are no hostages. It's just entire, like, thing. It's just flat. It's just flat, like a nuclear bomb just went off. But they don't target civilians. Yeah, they do. I don't give a shit what anybody says. Yeah, they do. The IDF absolutely does. What is your definition of target? Okay, so when a hospital is asked to evacuate and they are roof knocked, which I don't know if you understand what roof knocking is, they like tap the hospital building in the air. What does that mean to you? And then they bomb the surrounding areas. What does that mean to you? Like you can be, you can put your head in the sand and not see what's going on there, but yeah, they absolutely do target civilians. And also, the indirect, with knowledge of indirect casualties from the attack with no military objective whatsoever, is war crimes. Like what they're doing are war crimes. This is not okay. None of this is okay. Yeah, I will only accept targeting civilians with aid and support for survival and rebuilding.
Especially in national politics, but in Washington, D.C., to really acknowledge the obvious here. And of course, money is a big part of that, whether it's AIPAC, whether it's other groups, far right-wing groups that are aligned with the far right-wing Israeli government, and their threats on politicians and their re-election campaigns, oftentimes, I mean, not often, always, especially for those that are vocal about these mass atrocities, they are either spending money for primary challengers against them, so AIPAC and others will definitely be involved in an attempted primary challenge against AOC.
Obviously, it's not okay, but I disagree with AOC's post. What is disagreeable about this? Where is she wrong here? The Biden administration can no longer reconcile their professed concern for Palestinians and human rights, while also single-handedly vetoing the UN's call for ceasefire. I don't understand. If there's a terrorist and you are in front of him, and I try to shoot him and if I try to shoot him by mistake, hit you, did I target you? But it's not a mistake. What they're doing is not a mistake. Like you can do that mental gymnastics, but like 61% of civilian casualties by their own account. So we're taking the conservative number. 61% of civilian casualties. And that's their number. That's the IDF's number. That's the Israeli government's number. Okay, so that's the conservative number. That's like, if we're to accept that number, that's on the low end. 61%? Get out of here. Yeah, dude. Mistakes. Oops. And that's their study. So if we're to take this at like surface value, we can kind of like extrapolate that this is on the low end. This is on the low end. Yeah, dude, just mistakes, bro. Oops. A highly equipped military making 61% mistakes. Can you imagine? Like that, it's just ludicrous to even say that. It's ludicrous. What would the number be if it was intentional, about the same? No, I think if I think it could be higher. But we're just taking this is their findings, okay? This is their findings. That's absurd. absurd. Yeah, just 16,000 whoopsie daisies. One of the most like advanced, like, don't they have like one of the most advanced like surveillance and intelligence apparatus? And you're telling me that despite all that, despite all the technology, despite all the intelligence, that they're making 61% of deaths from, that's just from the airstrikes, by the way. Just from the airstrikes are civilians. Yeah, I'm supposed to just say, "Oh, it's a mistake, man. They're not doing anything intentional." Some hostages have been released. Yes. Okay, so what was wrong about AOC's post? You never answered the question. What exactly is wrong here? Like what part of this was wrong?
Or they will support the Republican candidate in the race. And these are, by the way, again, these are groups that support both Democrats and Republicans. So they will back whatever side they can that they feel is a worthy investment to try and get somebody in there that is going to take out someone who is supporting the human rights of Palestinians. It's an ongoing problem, and it's part of the reason why a lot of politicians are afraid to speak up, and some of them just go. I mean, if you've seen John Fetterman, the Democratic senator,
very normal and very hinged.
He is one of the absolute worst right now in terms of just the complete erasing of the obvious genocide going on in Gaza, and it's not even just ignoring what's going on. He is actively supporting the far right-wing government of Israel as they are indiscriminately bombing and killing tens of thousands of civilians. And it would be disgusting to see from a Republican senator. It's even more disgusting, I would argue, from a Democratic senator, where you would hopefully expect a little more, at least a larger voice for human rights. But he's someone who is he's completely gone, and it's really
Promoting people I know on Facebook who want to support Palestine only. It's complex, and I'm not over there, but I want Bibi gone. Okay, but what part of this was wrong? I don't understand. You said you disagree. What part of this is wrong? Like I'm trying to understand like what part of this is disagreeable. Like you can't on one hand say that you support like just basic human rights no matter where they are. You can't say like, yeah, I support like getting aid to the civilians in Gaza, and then your administration, your representatives in the UN are vetoing the possibility of getting a ceasefire to provide humanitarian aid. You can't have these at the same time. Like the messaging is contradictory. That's what she's saying. So what part of that is wrong?
Sad to see how far he's fallen. Last thing here from Common Dreams. So this is today. West Bank general strike kicks off global protest against Israel's war on Gaza. So there are work stoppages being held in Jordan, Lebanon, and elsewhere, and there are others, all over the world right now today, fighting for this or advocating to go on a strike in support of Gaza. So it's good to see some solidarity here. Still, I can't help. I want to be. I very much want to be optimistic. But seeing how little teeth the UN has, seeing what little power there is against these ongoing atrocities, I I want to bring good news. I want to communicate that there will be an end to this at some point. But the way things are going right now, I really do not know when this is going to end.
Yeah, that's true. I disagree with AOC. No politician is going to do everything you want. I don't think that's what she was saying. I think she was pointing out the contradictory message. She's pointing out the contradiction between saying like, oh, I believe that we should try to get as much humanitarian aid, to the envoy, the U.S. envoy, saying, nah. So again, what part of that was disagreeable with? She's not saying that like, oh, this politician needs to do everything I want. She's pointing out the contradictory messaging that's coming from the administration. Does that make sense? Because, like, just, of course, it's contradictory between Israel and Palestine. How does this resolve, if at all? No, that's not the point. The point is, if this administration is saying on one hand, okay, if the Biden administration, if this U.S. government right now is saying, hey, we want to bring aid to, we believe that Palestinian civilians need humanitarian aid, okay? And on the other hand, they are vetoing a ceasefire to provide humanitarian aid. These two positions cannot, you're saying completely two opposite things at the same time. Your administration on one hand is saying, yes, we believe, humanitarian aid is important and humanitarian aid needs to get to the civilians in Gaza. And on the other hand, you're vetoing a resolution. You're vetoing a resolution to stop that. So again, I asked, like, because this is very important. It's like people, like, if you're going to disagree with something, like, there has to be some kind of logic behind it, right? Like, you need to logic why you don't agree with this and find out where this is wrong. Mighty Mouse has it going. So if the fighting was more accurate, you would have supported it. I don't necessarily disagree with the idea of self-defense. Like, if you're being attacked, you do what you got to do, right? To fend off the attackers. You then don't go and like raise entire neighborhoods, and eliminate entire literal family lines, afterwards, right? Because then you're not really defending yourself, are you? And also, if your goal is to defeat, if your goal is to supposedly defeat terrorism, why are you creating every single action to make more terrorists? You do realize that every time this happens, that's a recruitment ad for Hamas, right? You do realize that every time Israel does this, it's a recruitment ad for Hamas. Free recruitment ad. Boom. So it's like, okay, well, do you want to stop Hamas, or are you actively recruiting for them? Oh, wait, you need them because you need this conflict to continue because your political career is in jeopardy right now. Again, Twitch and I debate be illogical, and I can be Twitch and I can debate and be illogical, and killing hostages, it's extremely messy, contradictory, and emotional. I mean, again, so the point being is that there should be nothing disagreeable about that statement, right? So you shouldn't disagree with what AOC said. She's saying that you can't say two things at the same time, right? Like do we all understand that? You can't say that on one hand, I support peace, and then, Hamas advertising company is Israel, exactly. So you can't on one hand say that I want peace, or rather, on one hand, you can't say I want to help these people, and then on the other hand, here comes a resolution from the entire UN saying, hey, we support the ceasefire for humanitarian aid, and you go, nah. You can't say these two things at the same time. That's what AOC is saying. So again, you don't really disagree with her. So I'm just making sure. Can Israel say, okay, Hamas and whoever else say I give up, or President Biden, I stand with against Israel, talk about UN popular? I don't know what that means. Anyways, what Biden can do is say, hey, if you continue down this path, we are going to make a public announcement. And that public announcement is going to be that we are no longer going to support Israel militarily and financially. And that's it. And that's it. So my point being is that, like, again, not shifting away from the original point, not to shift away from your original point, which says I disagree with AOC. You actually don't, because none of the things that you've said is disagreeing with what she's saying. Does that make sense? I just want people to think about this before you say, "Oh, I disagree," or "Oh, I agree with this idea," or "I disagree with this idea." Why? What are they saying? Ali with the 12 biddies, thank you.
A couple of weeks ago, I posted a video revealing that there was no technical barrier whatsoever to shifting oil refinery activity away from making combustible hydrocarbons and towards a 100% focus on all the other stuff that we can get from this miracle black liquid. Things like pharmaceuticals, plastics, fertilizers, and other non-combustible petrochemicals. My industry expert guest, Paul Martin, explained that all we needed was for the fossil fuel industry to agree to reduce its global annual turnover by about 80% or so, and for politicians to stop feathering their own personal nests with all the oil industry lobbying money that they're currently pocketing, and to get back to the business of properly representing their constituents' interests, which is, after all, what we elect them to do, isn't it? Now, I can't imagine why, but there were quite a lot of people in the comments section of that video who didn't seem to think that was a particularly realistic proposition. There is another bunch of commentators, though, who do think it's not only possible, but essential. Greenpeace? Friends of the Earth? No, the International Energy Agency. Hello, and welcome to Just Have a Think. Right now, as I'm sitting here making this video, our world leaders, plus about 70,000 policy wonks, international lawyers, industry lobbyists and media journalists.
Yeah, this is a disaster. Like there's actually not even a point, in my opinion, to even cover COP28, because like it's just BS. Okay, it's literally BS. I think that I think it was the host or someone that's like really important to the COP28 was saying something to the effect of like, oh, we don't, hold on. I forgot what he said. COP 28 think it was one of the sultans. Crap. COP28 president. Oh, here it is. I mean, like, that's basically all I needed to say with regards to this to this COP28, right? Yeah.
Are attending the COP28 climate conference in Dubai. So it was no coincidence that the International Energy Agency, or IEA, chose to publish this new report just last week. It's probably worth just a very quick reminder of why the IEA exists. The agency was established in 1974 in response to the previous year's global oil crisis, when OPEC member countries proclaimed an oil embargo, causing a significant disruption in oil supply and a dramatic increase in oil prices globally. The primary aim of the IEA, as an autonomous agency within the framework of the Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development, or OECD, was to help its member countries coordinate a collective response to major disruptions in oil supply. It was also there to offer information and policy advice on energy security, economic development, and environmental protection. So it's kind of been a bit of a frenemy to the oil and gas industry for about half a century now. And over the years, the response to its periodic publications has all gone a bit Marmite, which for those of you not subjected to British television advertising basically means some people love them and some people not so much. I don't think anyone can question their dedication, application and diligence in compiling their reports though, and this one is no exception. So what delights does it hold for us then? Well, first up, it makes no bones about the current state of affairs. A moment of truth is coming for the oil and gas industry, it declares. Structural changes in the energy sector are now moving fast enough to deliver a peak in oil and gas demand by the end of this decade under today's policy settings. But even if we do see peak oil this decade, the IEA points out that those so-called policy settings don't bring about a fast enough decline in fossil fuel greenhouse gas emissions to align with the Paris Agreement.
Yeah, that's not. We can move past this idea that we're even going to get close to the 1.5 degrees Celsius. That's just a thing that's not going to happen. That's just a thing that's not going to happen. Shut people, they couldn't answer you. True.
The 1.5 degrees Celsius goal. That'll come as no surprise at all to anyone who regularly watches this channel or pays attention to thermometers. I know a strong El Nino is adding to atmospheric warmth this year, but it must still be noted that October saw a monthly average global temperature of 1.7 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. And on Friday the 17th of November, the world witnessed the truly terrifying spectacle, albeit for one day only, of global average temperatures spiking to 2 degrees above 1850 to 1900 levels for the first time in recorded human history. 2023 as a whole is on track to be very close to the 1.5 degrees safe limit. Oh yeah, and by the way, the worst effects of El Nino are due to hit in 2024, so you know, brace yourselves. Anyway, less of my prattle and more of the expert analysis. The IEA bods, being the disciplined data-based boffins that they are, confine themselves to drawing their conclusions purely from available stated government policy, rather than doing what the rest of us do, which is to look at what's actually happening and throw all our toys out of the pram. So the grown-ups at the IEA tell us that if all the governments of the world do actually deliver in full on their national energy and climate pledges, then oil and gas demand would be 45% below today's level by 2050, and the resultant temperature rise could be limited to 1.7 degrees Celsius. And to parody a well-worn sporting cliche, if you'd offered me that final result at this stage of the game, I think I'd take it. But the IEA also points out that if we really did want to confine ourselves to only 1.
Yeah, here's the thing. This is the last comment I'm going to make on it. Hey, how'd that work out for us in the war in the Middle East? Oh, well, hey, it didn't, because we never got rid of ISIS. We never defeated Al Qaeda. We never defeated the Taliban. Yeah, it didn't really work, did it? What about the climate crisis? I'm not optimistic. I'm not optimistic either. I'm not optimistic either. It's really just a matter of like how much we're willing to do. And I'm not really optimistic that the people who have decision-making powers are going to make that. I mean, like, at the end of the day, like, capitalism basically makes it makes it so that we don't really care about anything except for making profit. What do you mean? What about that big mission accomplished banner? True. You didn't? You claim you did. Wait, what? What are you talking about? Listen, I'm not about to get into a quagmire when there's really nothing to argue about. I promise you that there's nothing to argue about. There's nothing objectionable about the things that I am saying. I promise you. If you're talking about the previous subject, I claimed that Israel is Hamas's best recruiter. Yes. Yes.
5 degrees Celsius and reach net zero by mid-century, oil and gas use would fall by 75% in the next 3 decades, which lo and behold is almost exactly what industry expert Paul Martin projected in my recent video.
The petroleum industry is going to shrink to, at most a quarter of what it is today.
The fossil fuel industry isn't exactly leaping onto the energy transition bandwagon with gay abandon though, has to be said. The analysis shows that oil and gas producers account for only 1% of total clean energy investment globally, which is truly pathetic. The first thing they really need to do though, according to the IEA, is clean up their own act. In other words, slash emissions from the production, transport and processing of oil and gas itself, which incredibly produces almost 15% of global energy-related greenhouse gas emissions. That's before you even think about setting fire to the end product and measuring any of that pollution. That's equivalent to all energy-related greenhouse gas emissions produced.
The U.S. claims that ISIS was eliminated? No, I think that was just Trump. I think that was literally just Trump. The U.S. as like a government entity has not claimed that ISIS is eliminated. Everybody can objectively say that ISIS is still there. Okay? ISIS is not gone. Okay? The only person who has said that is Trump. Okay?
By the United States each year. If we want to get anywhere near the 1.5 degrees scenario, the IEA tells us, those emissions will need to drop by 60% by 2030. That'll mean that oil and gas become less profitable and much riskier commodities as net zero transitions accelerate, with generally lower prices and an increasing risk of stranded assets. And crucially, getting to net zero by mid-century means that no new long lead time conventional oil and gas projects are required. And you know what? I'm going to say that again. No new long lead time conventional oil and gas projects are required. The report reckons that any company engaging in those activities will need to explain how they can possibly be viable within a global pathway to net zero emissions by 2050.
They won't be.
And be completely transparent.
They won't be. It's going to take a lot. Okay, so it's going to take a lot of lies or greenwashing, or just like that's just not part of their goals.
About how they plan to avoid pushing this goal out of reach, not least to their shareholders, who may well currently include your bank or pension fund. You might want to check that, by the way. So let's say the fossil fuel industry does actually get going on this epic odyssey towards a 1.5 degree scenario. According to the numbers in this report,
I doubt it.
That would...
I'll be honest, I doubt it. I mean, I guess it's not impossible. It's not impossible because that's true. It's not impossible. I just really doubt it. Yeah, I mean, like, This is supposed to be one of the most like biggest summits that we have as an international community to get together and being like, hey, we need to address the climate crisis. And like this is the president of that supposed meeting or summit. Okay.
Would mean oil production dropping
Like,
from
excuse me if my if my hopes aren't all that high.
more than 100 million barrels today to about 24 million by 2050, more than 3/4 of which will be used for non-combustible petrochemicals. There's also fossil gas though, isn't there? And it all gets a little bit murkier and more contentious here. The IEA suggests that gas volumes will drop from more than 4,000 billion cubic meters today to only about 900 billion by 2050, half of which they say will be used to produce hydrogen. We could do a whole video on some of the insane suggestions for hydrogen coming out of the fossil fuel industry at the moment. In fact, I've done several videos myself in the past, links to which I will leave in the description section below, along with some extremely instructive articles from well-respected industry analysts like Michael Barnard, Michael Liebrich, Paul Martin and Jan Rosenow, all of which are well worth a read if you get a chance. The IEA analysis suggests that about 30% of the energy in a net zero world will come from hydrogen and hydrogen-based fuels, backed up by good old carbon capture, utilisation and storage, or CCUS, plus liquid bio.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about that. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, I believe we are going to need some type of carbon capture, but I don't know if we're there yet. I mean, it's probably more prudent to just kind of go from this at the source, which is stopping emissions. That's probably the prudent solution, but here we are. Because of how it's measured, the mean of 1.5 Celsius won't be known until at least 10 years past that point. We'll probably be there in actuality by 2030. Yeah. One of the most one of the common themes of one of the common themes of these climate studies is that everything is happening much faster than we anticipated. I feel like that's like a theme that has been developing, just covering this subject. A lot of scientists have kind of gotten to that conclusion. They're like, oh man, a lot of these things are happening a lot faster and ahead of schedule than we'd really like them. So yeah, that would not surprise me. And yes, you're right. We wouldn't know until that time has passed, and by then, it's kind of a little too late, isn't it? The U.S. needs to lead this. They need to put sanctions on countries that will not lower their emissions. Right, but the problem is that we're kind of the big problem, right?
Biofuels, biomethane and geothermal energy, as well as wind, solar, energy storage and a bit of nuclear, of course. Big oil and gas are dead keen on the whole hydrogen thing, largely because they already produce 98% of the world's supply by bombarding fossil gas with high pressure steam to break millions of tons of CH4 and H2O molecules into millions of tons of H2 and CO2 molecules. And you don't need a degree in chemistry to see the flaw in that activity. They're big on CCUS too, because as they're happy to point out to anyone daft enough to listen, it's not burning the oil that's the problem, it's the carbon dioxide it produces that's the problem.
Bro!
But according to this very report, and I quote, carbon capture, utilisation and storage is an essential technology for achieving net zero emissions in certain sectors and circumstances, but it's not a way to retain the status quo. If oil and gas consumption were to evolve as projected under today's policy settings, this would require an inconceivable 32 billion tonnes of carbon captured for utilisation or storage by 2050, including 23 billion tonnes via direct air capture to limit the temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius. The necessary carbon capture technologies would require 26,000 terawatt hours of electricity generation to operate in 2050, which is more than global electricity demand in 2022. And it would require over 3.5 trillion US dollars in annual investments all the way from today through to mid-century, which is an amount equal to the entire industry's annual average revenue in recent years. So the problem is burning the oil, because not burning it will prevent all of the above. Another very common misconception, according to our friends at the IEA, is that transitions can only be led by changes in demand. It's yet another favourite mantra of the big, strong men who like to tell us.
Yeah. Or maybe the government can do what the government needs to be doing. Sorry about that. I'm like clicking around. Don't mind me. Kind of funny for us to go after China for their emissions when we're a big part of it. Why it's so bad. True. But, by the way, it's not a popular thing to say, but the world has too many people. We need to lower the birth rate. Nah, it has nothing to do with that. I think it's more of a system, of the system that we operate under, rather than there's too many people. I don't think so.
As little people how the real world works.
Like, notice how every, like, climate, like, science or climate study... yeah, I know. Notice how, like, every, like, climate study has nothing to do with, like, population. More people need more power. And if that power was from, like, renewable energy, like, for example, I don't know, solar, it really wouldn't matter now, would it? If there's, like, 1 person or 10 people, right? See how that doesn't make any sense?
When the energy world changes, they declare, so will we. Not good enough, says the IEA. That pathetic cop-out is not an adequate response to the immense challenges at hand. No one committed to change should be waiting for someone else to move first, they say. Successful, orderly transitions are collaborative ones, in which suppliers work with consumers and governments to expand new markets for low emissions products and services. The IEA does warn, though, that declining markets are difficult to plan for, and there will likely be disruption from geopolitical tensions and, of course, increasing extreme weather events. That will be felt most acutely in emerging and developing economies in Asia, whose share of global crude oil imports is set to rise from 40% today to 60% by mid-century. Countries that are heavily reliant on oil and gas revenues face some stark choices, according to the report. But in most cases, today's major producers of low-cost hydrocarbons also have expertise and ample underutilised renewable energy resources that could anchor their positions in clean energy value chains and low-emissions industries if they just got off the pot and started getting busy. Which is why we could well do without stories like this one from the BBC's climate editor.
Yeah. That's yikes. I mean, I literally just put the other article not too long ago, so yeah. I mean, is it even like that? That's why I didn't even bother to cover this. Like, there's no point in talking about this. Only to point out just how, like, just how bad this is. Like, this is not a summit to address climate change, okay? This is not an international summit to address climate change. At this point in time.
In rollout in late November, highlighting leaked documents that show the United Arab Emirates plans to use its presidency of the COP28 conference to arrange backroom discussions on new fossil fuel deals with 15 different countries, something the UN points out is entirely at odds with the UAE's responsibility as COP president to act without bias or self-interest. Now, I don't have anything like enough money to even suggest that His Excellency Dr. Sultan Al Jaber and his colleagues might be a bunch of lying, greedy, psychopathic, hypocritical shitbags.
True. You have a good stream. Good night. Thank you. Appreciate it.
demure and polite Englishman, I wouldn't dream of casting those kinds of aspersions on such an honourable group of gentlemen.
Yeah, good thing that they're not honorable.
But there are others less prudent than me,
So you can.
and they are definitely suggesting that this apparent skullduggery does indeed represent a highly disingenuous approach to the whole COP presidency thing. I'll let you be the ultimate judge, of course, but whatever the truth of the matter, there's no doubt the human species now has a truly daunting mountain to climb. If we'd started to climb it when we first discovered it was there, about 40 years ago, as these internal memos from geological experts employed by Exxon at the time reveal, it would have been nothing more than a slightly inconvenient bump in the road. But decades of piling ever larger dollops of shit onto the pile have brought us to where we are today. So now we really do need to stop shoveling and start scrambling. And following the radical...
Yeah, so like, I mean, I've seen this guy, I've seen this guy's videos before, like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but he normally doesn't really use this type of language. I mean, like, you could really tell, like, the exasperation, is notable. Love that Exxon zing, and so true. It's still in the courts whether they can be held responsible. Yep. Make it make sense, please.
recommendations of this latest IEA report wouldn't be a bad starting point. That's it for this week. Thanks as always to our Patreon supporters who keep this channel 100% independent and allow me to make these videos without any annoying ads or sponsorship messages. And I must just give a quick shout out to some folks who've joined recently with pledges of $10 or more a month.
All right. Yeah, I mean, if you want to check out this dude's channel, you can. Let's see. Okay. So, a couple days ago, we talked about how it is absurd that a person needs a judge's permission to have bodily autonomy. Well, after the fact, so here's the thing: the woman put in an emergency order, or like put in a request for an emergency order because she needed an abortion because the fetus had a terminal, like a terminal condition. Like the fetus was probably going to be born, be stillborn, or it was going to live for like a very short amount of time, like a week. So obviously the plan there is for abortion. So she needed an emergency judge order. The judge gave that order, and then the attorney general from Texas threatened to go after her and or the doctors, which is absurd. And it looks like the intimidation won. It looks like the intimidation won because unfortunately she was forced, or she felt like she was forced to go to another state, even though there was no grounds for the legal action that the attorney general was threatening. The matter was settled. The judge gave her, which again, the absurdity of this to begin with, but she had the court order that said that she was good to go. So it wouldn't have mattered. Like, legally speaking, I don't think that this dude had any standing. But nonetheless, he threatened. He threatened, and now effectively he won. Because at the end of the day, she chose to leave. And mind you, this isn't the option for a lot of people. Okay. This isn't the option for a lot of people. Because, like, how many folks can afford to not only have the funds to keep up a legal battle, but also to just, like, hightail it out of there and go to another state? It is infuriating. All women should leave Texas because it isn't a safe state. Yeah, if you can, if you have the means to do so. I know you can't just like snap your fingers and be able to move, but if you have the means to do so, it's not a bad idea. Pregnant Texas woman at the center of the legal battle of a legal battle leaves the state to obtain the abortion. A Texas woman at the center of a legal battle over terminating her high-risk pregnancy has left the state to get the abortion, her attorney said in a statement. Kate Cox sought the abortion after learning her fetus had a fatal condition, and doctors told her, Home 1932. What does that mean? And doctors told her she could risk her future fertility if she doesn't get the procedure. The Center for Reproductive Rights, which represented Cox, announced on Monday the 31-year-old mother who's 21 weeks pregnant decided to leave the state to get the health care elsewhere. While the center is not disclosing more details about her plans, their statement said she's received offers to help her access abortion elsewhere, from Kansas to Colorado to Canada. This past week of legal limbo has been hellish for Kate, and like the more this goes on, the worse it is, right? Her health is on the line. She's been in and out of the emergency room, and she couldn't wait any longer. This is why judges and politicians should not be making healthcare decisions for pregnant people. They are not doctors. True. On Thursday, state district court sided with Cox and granted a temporary restraining order against the state so she could legally have an abortion under the state's medical emergency exceptions. Texas nearly had a complete abortion ban with narrow exceptions. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton quickly threatened criminal prosecution against the doctor or hospitals who helped facilitate the abortion, saying they could still face charges after the 14-day contemporary restraining order expires. So yeah, they're literally threatening to go after them, regardless of what the judge said. Late Friday night, the High Court temporarily blocked Cox from obtaining an abortion while it reviewed the details of the case and has not been issued a decision since then. A court filing over the weekend supports the Republican Attorney General's petition for the Texas Supreme Court to intervene. CNN has reached out to Paxton for comment. Cox's attorney said she has been to the emergency room 4 times in the last month due to symptoms like severe cramping, diarrhea, leaking fluid, elevated vital signs, and because she's already delivered 2 children via C-sections, her physicians have warned she is at high risk for complications, including possible uterine rupture in future pregnancies. According to her attorney, the pregnancy would need to be delivered via C-section again, which Cox fears would jeopardize her health and future fertility. Additionally, the fetus has trisomy 18, sometimes called Edwards syndrome, which is a fatal genetic condition that causes heart defects and other organ abnormalities. In at least 95% of the cases, fetuses don't survive a full term due to complications from the diagnosis of pregnancies can end in miscarriage or babies in stillborn. The medical emergency exception in Texas, what else is there? What perfect example of a medical emergency than this? And they're still so it was all bullshit to begin with. Whenever you hear these fucking Republicans talk about there's medical, it's all bullshit. Okay. The medical emergency exception in Texas allows for the abortion if the mother has a life-threatening physical condition while pregnant or has a serious risk of substantial impairment to a major... What the fuck does that even... what do you think? She literally might not have the ability to have children anymore. Which she literally said, hey, I understand that this is a situation that happened, but I still... But I still want to have children in the future, and this would literally prevent me from doing that. I would say that is a substantial impairment of a major bodily function, don't you think? Jesus Christ. Right. The exceptions exist on paper, so they sound a little less ghoulish. Exactly. Critics argue the statute is too vague and has a chilling effect on doctors who feel criminal prosecutions, and like that makes sense. The same legal group representing Cox, the Center for Reproductive Rights, is also representing a group of women and physicians before the Texas Supreme Court in a lawsuit seeking clarity. The state argues the law is adequate. Cox's lawsuit is believed to be one of the first attempts in the country by an individual seeking court-ordered abortion since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. Paxton argued that Cox has not established her symptoms to meet life-threatening criteria of the law. Bro, are you serious? The new filing from his office stated Cox inquired about getting an abortion only after learning her child might not survive the pregnancy or long afterward, and she already knew she was at risk of needing another C-section before her current pregnancy. Plaintiffs plead no facts linking Ms. Cox's conditions related to the birth of this child to the loss of fertility. Instead, it appears she will face the same risk regarding the birth of any future child. Jesus Christ. But that's not what her doctor, was saying. Cox spent most of the weekends in bed, her attorney said. To think about how it'd feel. She's not dying at this moment. You get an order saying, yes, my abortion going forward. My doctor can give me life-saving care, and abortion is what I need right now. And all of a sudden, the court steps in and says on Friday night, we need more time to think about it. Now it's all been all weekend. Yeah, and again, this person needs this now. This person needs this now. This is why it's completely untenable for patients to have to come to court and ask for court authorization for life-saving medical care. It's simply outrageous, and people should be outraged by what is happening in Texas. As his office has done in broader cases on this issue before the Supreme Court, Paxton's attorney also argued that a fatal fetal condition does not meet the medical exception, and that the exception applies to the mother's condition. Like, what absolute freaking ghouls, man. If this is followed through, essentially what the Republican Party is saying is that, like, yeah, I mean, your fetus can be completely stillborn. Your fetus may have some type of genetic issue where it's only going to live for a few days, and you're going to have to, carry that to term. And that's that. You have no choice in self-determination, no choice in bodily autonomy. This is just what we've deemed that you're going to have to go through. There is no other explanation to any of this other than cruelty. Other than cruelty and control. That's it. Isn't an ambulance in the US like $3,000? I don't know, but it's a lot. Okay? I don't know, but it's a lot. It's a lot, and oftentimes you have to fight with your health insurance, hoping that it might have some kind of provision. If you do have to take an ambulance, it costs like an arm and a leg. So hopefully your insurance covers that. If there is a 110. Okay, hold on. That's above my pay grade in terms of math, okay? From the controversial country, Sweden. Oh, so a country that has a more or less a universal healthcare system. Nice. Yeah. My grandpa got charged $8,000 for a 4-block ambulance ride. That's absurd. Imagine getting hit with an 1 in 10 to the 99th power. Jesus. that's a lot of zeros, right? Because it would be 10 to the 99th. All I know is that that's probably has a lot of zeros to the behind that. Anyways, yeah, like 8K, yeah. I believe one of our viewers had a broken, I want to say like broken, about 99 zeros. Yeah, math was never really my strong suit, but that makes sense now that I think about it. One of our viewers had a broken, I want to say broken leg. In fact, I think they still stop by once in a while. Jesse James, I believe, is their username, and I think that like a broken, I want to say it was a broken foot. I think it was like 20 something K between everything. It's absurd. Paxton's office said none of the physicians who have treated Cox who live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area have recommended an abortion. Dr. Damia Carson, a Houston-based physician, a plaintiff in the other cases, the doctor cited in legal filings as the physician who reviewed Cox's medical records, recommended the abortion and has agreed to provide the medical care. The state wrote in the filing that Carson's recommendation is not enough. What Paxton is saying is that physicians in Texas shouldn't be practicing medicine. Ken Paxton is practicing medicine because that's what he wants. He wants to review her medical records. He wants to decide if he thinks she's sick enough. Yeah, that's basically it. I think what this goes to show is that people tout the medical exception to abortion bans as meaning that the abortion bans are okay and the people who really need care are still getting it is a lie. It's just not true. Yep. When asked why Cox decided to file a suit rather than seek care in another state earlier Thursday, Dwayne replied, "For most people who need abortion care, they can't leave their home communities for urgent care. Getting on a plane in the middle of a medical emergency, let alone an obstetrical emergency, is a human rights violation in and of itself." Dwayne would not say where Cox would be getting the abortion, but they say they plan to help her get care the fastest way possible. This is absurd because, like, man, these last couple of days that we've been following it, I think last week, it's sad. At the end of the day, like, basically, these these Republicans won. They forced her to leave. They forced her to go to another state to get simple health care that she needs. This is not up for debate. That's literally what her doctor said that she needs. And yeah, they managed to prevent that from happening and made her go somewhere else. F Texas, I agree. I agree. I'm almost willing to bet real money at these effing ghouls masturbate while reading these lawsuits. I mean, like, these people are on a whole other level of evil. To be able to, like, listen to this case and being like, nah, I actually don't. I don't believe you. I don't believe your doctor. I'm going to determine what healthcare, what care you can, or deserve to receive. Like, it's absurd. It's absurd. Yeah, unironically, yes. Unironically, yes. An actual death panel. Coincidentally, these are the same people that would be like, oh, if you have government healthcare, it's gonna be death panels. Those are the same people making that argument, by the way. You're right. You're absolutely correct. For pointing that out, yeah. So this is like a lowercase w. High Court, in declining to weigh conversion therapy ban, allows the law to stand. The Supreme Court on Monday declined to hear a case challenging Washington state ban on conversion therapy of minors. In doing so, the court left standing a lower court decision that upheld the state's ban on therapy that the American Medical Association says is not based on medical and scientific evidence. Like, wow. Imagine in the year 2023, having this discussion. The Washington passed law enacted in 2018 allows the state to revoke the license of therapists who try to change a minor's sexual orientation. Brian Tingley, a family counselor and advocate for conversion therapy, challenged this law, represented by the Anti-LGBTQ Alliance Defending Freedom. He claimed that the law violates his First Amendment right to free speech. How? The lower courts upheld the law. The court's decision not to hear the case on Monday included no reasons as a standard when it denies a case, but Justice Alito, Brett Kavanaugh, and Clarence Thomas dissented from the order and would have heard that case, of course. Logic, shame, hypocrisy, and empathy have no meaning to these people. Yep. In his dissent, Thomas wrote, although the court declines to take this particular case, I have no doubt that the issue it presents will come before the court again. When it does, the court should do what it has done here and take this case. Nah, this isn't a First Amendment issue. Nope. Anyways, so lowercase w, the Supreme Court decided to not take a case and upheld the lower court's decision on banning conversion therapy for minors. So that's good. That's good. We gotta take these lowercase w's when we can, right? Especially given the makeup of this Supreme Court. So we have a small update on this. Jurors in a Giuliani damages case hear the threats election workers got after his false claims. Lawyers for the two election workers played audio recordings in a Washington courtroom today of graphic and racist threats to the two women received after Giuliani falsely accused them of fraud while pushing Trump's baseless claim after the 2020 election. The recordings were part of the opening statement. Stop it. In a federal case that will determine how much Giuliani might have to pay the women. The former mayor has already been found liable in the defamation lawsuit brought by Ruby Freeman and her daughter, Leandra Moss, Shay Moss, who endured the threats and harassment after they became targets of a conspiracy theory spread by Trump and his allies. The only issue to be determined at the trial is the amount of damages, if any, Giuliani must pay. The women's lawyers estimate that the reputation damages could reach $47 million and suggested emotional and punitive damage could, on top of that, could be tens of millions. Yeah, I mean, you know, Giuliani's lawyer said any awards should be much less. The recordings played by the lawyers on Monday included threats accusing the women of treason and threatening to hang them. The women got hundreds of similar calls, text messages, and emails, said attorney Vaughn DuBose. People also showed up at the Freeman's house to pound on her door and at her mother's house to make citizens arrests. Jesus Christ. Like, and this is the kind of stuff that, like, Giuliani was spreading around. Imagine imagine when Trump starts to target specific poll places. Because like, let's say I'm thinking of the hypothetical that Trump loses the election by a very, very, very small margin, which is a very possible outcome, and he starts to threaten or to suggest that there have been irregularities at certain poll locations. If this is the kind of stuff that was happening in the last election, can you imagine? That's some scary stuff. Like, how Giuliani is not in jail is beyond me, to be quite frank. How this guy is not in jail is to me is wild. Mr. Giuliani and his co-conspirators stole the lives of Ms. Moss and Ms. Freeman by destroying their names. Freeman and Moss' lawyer have also played recordings of Giuliani falsely accusing them of sneaking in ballots in suitcases, counting ballots multiple times, and tampering with voting machines. None of that was true. Trump also repeated the conspiracy theories through his social media accounts, something attorney Michael Gottlieb called the most powerful amplifier on earth. The then president also assailed Freeman and Moss on his speech on January 6th. Around the same time, people with flags and bullhorns came to Freeman's home. She wasn't there, however, because she had fled after the FBI told her it wasn't safe. Jesus Christ. How are any of these people still, like, allowed to just be out? Can you imagine if, like, and under any other, like, normal circumstance, if, like, somebody starts making these type of call to actions and, like, people actually answer those call to actions and threaten people to the point where the FBI is literally saying, like, I don't think your home is safe, dude. Wild. No justice for the rich, true. Because the FBI told her it wasn't safe, she eventually had to sell her house of 20 years. That's wild. Special counsel Jack Smith deploys a nuclear option, goes straight to the Supreme Court to decide whether the Trump has immunity from criminal prosecution for crimes committed in the office, setting the stage for a historic ruling. This could change the course of America as we know it. Smith made the official request today, asking the nation's highest court to weigh in for the first time on history on prosecution of the prosecution of a former president. Yeah, I mean, like, I suspect that, I mean, like, under normal circumstances, the answer to that question, like, unequivocally would be like, no, he doesn't have immunity, right? But this is, you know, the makeup of the Supreme Court. It is what it is. Nonetheless, I believe that that was probably, you know, the right move. Yeah, exactly. How is it even a question? That's basically the base. In other words, so the implication is that, like, the president automatically has, like, God powers and can't be prosecuted. If we're having to debate this issue, it means that by default the implication is that he has immunity, right? But here we are. Yes, Nixon's not illegal if the president does it. Exactly. Gottlieb asked the jury to award substantial damages to send a message that in the United States of America, behavior like Rudy Giuliani is not the inevitable result of politics, it's not acceptable, and will not be tolerated. Giuliani's attorney, Joseph Sibley, and Freeman said Freeman and Moss are good people who didn't deserve the treatment that they received, but he argued that there was little evidence that Giuliani was directly responsible for the threats and harassments directed away, and any former mayor, the former mayor never encouraged it. This is something that other people did independent of Mr. Giuliani. He argued that the amount of money that they want in damages is civil equivalent of the death penalty. Boo-hoo. He said that he would ask the jury to award an amount that they believe is fair, but at much lower level. Giuliani did not speak to reporters as he entered the Washington federal courthouse. The same building where Trump is to stand trial on the in March in criminal charges, accusing the former president of scheming to overturn his loss to President Biden. Giuliani is expected to take the witness stand in his own case, said lawyers on Monday, raising questions about whether his testimony could also put him in jeopardy in a separate criminal case in Georgia that accuses Trump, Giuliani, and others for trying to illegally overturn the results of the election. Yada yada yada. Okay, I think that this is it. Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, I do think he deserves the financial equivalent of the death penalty. I mean, he deserves jail, but yeah, in this civil case, yeah, he does deserve the death penalty, the financial version of the death penalty. Jesus Christ. Remember, Trump said Nixon want to do anything to forget the laws. It does not exist. At least Nixon quit. Yeah, but he's still a scumbag. That makes them both scumbags. Elon Musk brings conspiracy theorist Alex Jones back to X following that poll. This one's not going to be that long. Essentially, like, yeah, Elon Musk basically is going to turn this into freaking, is going to turn, like, Twitter into freaking Gab, essentially. Elon Musk has brought right-wing American conspiracy theorists, that's one way. I mean, yeah. You know, not only was he a conspiracy theorist, but this dude's out there, like, you know, propping up Kanye, I Like Hitler West, and Nick Fuentes. I mean, okay. And back to Twitter after holding a poll on his platform. Jones, who was ordered to pay nearly $1.5 billion in damages for defaming the families of the Sandy Hook killing in the United States, was reinstated on Sunday after about 70% of the respondents to an unscientific poll on Twitter backed his return. Shortly after his reinstatement, Jones Jones posted a video teaser touting an X Spaces discussion he had with Musk and Kickbox turned influencer. Yeah, what is this framing? And currently accused of trafficking and rape. Okay, he's not just like some influencer. Anyways, it's way bigger than Alex Jones, the InfoWars host, said in the video. It's about Renaissance 2.0. It's about free speech. It's about deep state failing. It's beyond cool. Elon Musk talks about everything, including subjects he has never been asked about before in this interview. Musk, who casts himself as P-gate as well, as a free speech absolutist, which he's not, on Saturday created a poll and asked if Jones' account should be restored more than 5 years after it was permanently banned. The people have spoken, and so it shall be. Yeah. Hey, I wonder how this is gonna go with their advertisers. Musk, who runs several companies, including Tesla and SpaceX, had previously vowed not to let Jones back on the platform, saying he had no mercy for anyone who would use the deaths of children for gains, politics, or fame, and then he did just that. Wow, phenomenal stuff. Phenomenal stuff. I vehemently disagree with what he said about Sandy Hook, but are we a platform that believes in freedom of speech, or are we not? I mean, you could promote freedom of speech. That doesn't mean you don't have, like, boundaries and consequences, right? Like, you have the freedom of speech, but there are consequences to saying abhorrent shit. You know, like getting banned. That's just Musk needing an ego boost, wanting to show he's a billionaire. Man of the people. Well, I don't even know if he actually cares. I honestly don't even know if he cares. They think it means freedom from consequence. Exactly. They're not actually talking about free speech, right? They're talking about freedom from consequences. Like, I want to be the most bigoted, hateful POS, and if you do anything against me, you're infringing on my free speech. Okay, that's the angle that this is coming from. That's exactly protected hate speech. Essentially, yeah. Essentially, I want to be the most bigoted, hateful a-hole, and you can't say anything because you're infringing on my rights to free speech. Like, if you try to ban me, oh, you're censoring free speech. You know? He cares about stroking his own ego. Yeah, I'm saying that he doesn't care about, like, what people... He doesn't care about free speech. He doesn't care about what, you know, the majority of people think about. He doesn't care about any of that. Yeah, only protecting hate speech. I mean, it is, isn't it? That's basically what it is. When these people talk about, oh, I'm a free speech absolutist or whatever, it just always ends up being that what they really advocate for is the freedom from consequences. They're not actually interested in freedom of speech. Like, Elon Musk does not care about free speech at all. And it's quite demonstrable because he literally, his company, Twitter, at which he runs solely, like, there's no board of directors, this is all him. All the time, they censor things that governments tell him to censor. Anytime you hear these free speech warriors talk about, like, oh, I'm a free speech absolutist, or I believe in free speech, chances are they don't. None of these people. They just want to be bigoted a-holes, and they just want to be bigoted, hateful a-holes, and not have any consequences. Watch that goalpost move. I mean, they have to, because fundamentally they don't care. Supposed free speech absolutists, but no one can disagree with them. Right, because if you disagree with them, then you're infringing on their free speech, right? You can't tell them that they're hateful, bigoted assholes, and they don't care. They don't believe in free speech. They'll ban you just the same. All right, let me get my mandolin. Wait, was it mandolin? Yes, mandolin. Okay. Let me get my mandolin. Let me make up this riff, and then we'll finish real quick. Also, Carp is right. There's no such thing as a free speech absolutist, right? Like, that doesn't exist. Hey, Amando, that's right. Okay, let's see if we can figure out something, yeah? Oh, close. I need something for that chord. Oh. Sounds familiar? Maybe. I don't know. Keep in mind that like the whole point of me putting this is so that chat can force me to play the mandolin so that I can learn how to play it properly. And by forcing me to like make up riffs using chords that I kind of just like peel off by learning different chords and different shapes, then eventually I'll make up, you know. But hey, if it sounds familiar, then I'm doing something right, right? And it means that I'm learning how these progressions work. Comments and covered by Midas Touch from Marjorie Taylor Greene's August 31st Town Hall. MAGA Republican blasted using incentives to attract high-paying jobs to her district during the question and answer portion. Green read off a question about jobs. What can you do about the worker shortages? That's right. There you go. That sounds like a riff to me, okay? I don't know about you, but that sounds like a riff to me. My pet rocks makes more sense. Trump trolled for calling climate change a con during NYRC's 11th annual gala. I don't listen to people who have pet rocks. Anyways, I don't know about you, but I think that qualifies as a riff to me, okay? And it's definitely different from definitely different from anything that I've played. So there you go. All right, folks. I think that is all the time that I have today. We might cover some more stuff tomorrow. But I definitely got through the most important stuff that I wanted to get through today. So we did good, everybody. We did good. Folks, if you enjoyed the content, don't forget to hit the follow button. It really does help us out. If you want to go even further beyond and want to support the channel, make sure you head on over to the YouTube channel, hit the big red subscribe button, like the stream. And again, if you haven't already done so, join the Discord. We are going to have a movie event at the end of the month, last Saturday of the month. So join the Discord if you want to join that. Or if you just want to keep up with the channel, or you just want notifications because your YouTube doesn't notify you or Twitch doesn't notify you. That's also another good reason to join the Discord if you want to keep up with the channel. Also, just to chat with people, discuss different stuff. I personally think I've done a decent job in organizing the Discord, and we'll keep adding more stuff. Thank you, Heat. Thank you, Michael Hassler, for modding the chat. I appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Thank you for the subscriptions. Thank you, Conscious Canuck. Thank you, Alio, for the biddies. Mouselander, thank you. I appreciate it. You guys are what makes this channel grow. A couple of shout outs. Thank you for hanging out, Carpet Packs, and thank you, Alio Share. I appreciate it. Let me just give a quick shout out, and there you go. All right, folks. As always, please stay safe. Please take care of each other. I love you all, and I hope to see you guys in the next one tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you guys so much. Thank you. Take care. I love you all, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. See ya. Thank you. Hang tight, everybody. We're heading out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you, Michael Hassler. Thank you, Heat. See ya. Bye-bye.